Sir, those girls live on my street. The little black girl's voice was barely a whisper, but it hit David Thompson like a gunshot. He'd been coming to this spot every Saturday for exactly 18 months. Same time, same suit, same bouquet of imported white lilies, same 2 Italian marble tombstones. Emma Thompson, Sophie Thompson, 7 years old. Killed, he'd been told, in a car accident. He'd paid a fortune for their plots in Riverside Cemetery, the most exclusive place in the city to rest in peace. Now a 10-year-old was pointing at their graves and saying, "They live on Maple Street, sir." David's hand went numb. The bouquet, $800 worth of flowers the florist swore were fit for angels, fell onto the gravel. "What did you say?" He asked, voice hoarse. The girl swallowed, but her eyes stayed steady. "They live on Maple Street. 2 little girls who look exactly alike, curly blonde hair, always holding hands. The woman who takes care of them doesn't let them out much, but I see them in the backyard sometimes." David Thompson had built a real estate empire from nothing. You don't do that by being naive. And for the last 2 months, something in him had been muttering, "Something's wrong." The accident report his lawyer got had inconsistencies. His ex-wife, Victoria's bank accounts, showed strange transfers right before the crash. And for a woman getting $15,000 a month in alimony, she'd somehow downgraded to a modest neighborhood far below what that money could buy. Now this little girl was handing him the missing piece. "How do you know their names?" he asked, lowering himself to her height. "Emma and Sophie?" Her eyes flicked to the marble stones, then back to him. "I heard the lady call them that yesterday, when they were playing. I only came here because my grandma brought me to see my grandpa." She pointed to a simple grave 3 rows back. "Then I saw you crying and read their names. They're the same girls, sir, I'm sure." David closed his eyes, not in grief this time, in rage. If this story of betrayal and revenge already has your heart racing, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what would you do if you found out your dead loved one was alive? Because what Victoria thought was her perfect scam was about to become the worst mistake of her life. 20 minutes later, David's black Porsche rolled slowly down Maple Street, lower middle-class neighborhood. Modest houses, small yards, nothing like the gated luxury where Victoria had lived when they were married. The little girl Destiny walked beside him, pointing toward a faded blue house near the end of the block. "It's that one, sir," she said. "The one with the fence." Before he even saw the backyard, he heard it. 2 little voices, one loud, bright, high-pitched, one softer, more cautious. "Mommy, look how I can jump rope." Emma always squealed when she was excited. Sophie always hung back, more shy, more deliberate. He'd know those voices anywhere. 18 months of weekly cemetery visits, 18 months of talking to marble, 18 months of paying Victoria $15,000 every month to cope with her loss, all while she was raising his daughters with money he thought was for their graves. He rang the bell. Footsteps, a lock turning. The door opened. Victoria's face went from mild annoyance to pure shock in less than a second. Still beautiful at 38, but tired, dark circles under her eyes. Stress where designer creams couldn't reach. "David, what are you doing here?" "I've come for my daughters," he said calmly, and walked straight past her. The house was simple but comfortable. From the kitchen, 2 small figures came running, cookies in hand. Older, taller, longer hair, but there was no mistaking them. Emma and Sophie. They froze when they saw him. To them, Dad was a distant memory. In their world, he'd left them more than a year ago. Victoria panicked. "Girls, go to your room now," she snapped. "No," David said softly, dropping to his knees. "Emma, Sophie, it's me, Daddy." Victoria watched, terrified, as David clutched the children he'd mourned at 2 expensive graves. When the girls eventually went to their room, confused but comforted, Victoria tried to pull herself together. "You can't just show up here," she said. "You don't understand the situation." "I understand perfectly," David replied. He took out his phone, hit play. A male voice echoed through the living room. "Yes, Mrs. Thompson. The documents are perfect. No one will ever question the accident. Officially, your daughters died on that highway. Officer Mike Harrison, Corrupt cop. Bought and paid for. Victoria's face drained of color. David played the next clip. Her own voice. What about the support payments? Will David keep paying? As far as we know, Harrison replied. He'll be too busy crying to question anything. Victoria whispered. You recorded our conversations? My team did more than that, David said. We tracked every transfer, every bribe to the morgue, every fake document. You left a digital trail a teenager could follow. She switched tactics. She backed up, still clinging to her old arrogance. Even if you prove something, you'll never take them from me. I'm their mother. Courts always favor the mother. Victoria, do you really think a man who built an empire from nothing wouldn't know how to build his own revenge? He glanced at his phone. Every word you just said has been recorded, and tomorrow at 9 a.m., you're going to find out exactly what 18 months of planning looks like. The next morning, David sat across from Marcus Chen, the most feared criminal lawyer in Chicago, the kind of man CEOs hired when the FBI knocked. Now he was working for a father. Chen flipped through the files, bank statements, audio transcripts, fake reports, social posts. 18 months pretending your daughters were dead, Chen murmured. How long? David asked. 15 to 25 years, Chen said. Easily, especially with Harrison already wobbling. He leaned back. But I assume you don't just want prison. No, Nocturne, David said. I want her to lose everything, money, reputation, the network that enabled her. I want her to feel what it's like to be powerless. Chen smiled, cold and impressed. Then you came to the right office. Behind the legal strategy was months of work by David's private investigator, Tomas Rodriguez. They'd uncovered bribes to Officer Harrison, forged morgue reports, offshore accounts, a hidden luxury apartment, trips, cars, spa treatments, all paid for with grief money. While Victoria pretended to be a broken mother, she was tagging luxury resorts on Instagram, always just after the alimony hit her account. Chen looked up. Once we launch this, there's no turning back. She'll be ruined. Sure you're ready for that? David thought about 18 months of lilies on empty graves. Thought about Emma asking, where's Daddy? And being told he didn't want them. Thought about Victoria in Paris while he cried at a cemetery. Tonight you're going to dinner. Because Victoria had texted, David, I know you're upset, but we can talk like adults. Let's have dinner and work out visitation. It doesn't have to be complicated. She still thought she was in control. David replied, Of course. You choose the restaurant. She had no idea she was RSVPing to her own downfall. The Meridian, fancy, discreet, the kind of place Victoria loved. She arrived right on time, in a $3,000 blazer, coincidentally the exact amount of one alimony payment. David was already at the table, studying the menu like this was just another business dinner. David, I'm glad you came, she said, smiling like they were civil exes. I knew we could handle this like adults. Oh, we'll handle everything tonight, he said, closing the menu. How are Emma and Sophie? Happy in the life you built for them? Emma's small voice recorded during a talk with Destiny filled the space between them. I dream about my dad sometimes. I wonder if he's okay. Mom said he didn't want us anymore, but I remember him taking me to the park. Victoria went pale. You recorded my daughters? She hissed. Our daughters, David corrected. And that was a conversation they had naturally. I don't need to trap children to hear the truth. He put the phone down, then placed a small recorder on the table. Remember Officer Harrison? He hit play again. Mrs. Thompson, Harrison's voice said. $50,000 for the accident documents, plus $20 a month to keep everything quiet. In return, your ex-husband will never suspect. Then her own voice. Perfect. David is too emotional about the girls. He'll be too busy crying to question anything. Victoria grabbed for the device. This is illegal. It won't stand up in court, David said, but Harrison's full confession will. He's already given every forged doc, every transfer, every text. In exchange for immunity, he opened a leather folder, photos of bank statements, travel receipts, shell company accounts spilled onto the table, all perfectly time-stamped. Cancun, 3 days after one deposit. A Michelin-star dinner the same night you sent me a bill for therapy sessions. You weren't hiding the girls, Victoria. You were hiding a crime. She tried one last time. Even if you prove all this, You can't erase biology, David leaned in. The calm in his eyes made her flinch. While you were busy spending my money, Marcus Chen was filing charges. Fraud, kidnapping, extortion, corruption. The FBI has everything. And tomorrow, when they execute the warrants, he looked past her. At the entrance, where Chen now stood, flanked by 2 FBI agents. Victoria followed his gaze. Real fear finally washed over her arrogance. David, please, she whispered. We can make a deal. I'll give the money back. You keep the girls. No one else has to know, Victoria Thompson. You're under arrest for document fraud, parental kidnapping, extortion, and conspiracy to corrupt a public official. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, she stared at David. I did it for love, she said desperately, to protect them. He stood up, adjusted his jacket. You did it for greed, Himam, he said. Love builds families. Greed destroys them. And you just learned what happens when you try to destroy the wrong father. They took her away under the curious stares of rich diners who'd heard enough to know this wasn't a tax audit. David sat back down, finished his wine. Tomorrow he'd bring his daughters home. Tonight he'd close the last page on the woman who tried to bury them. 6 months later, the sound of kids laughing echoed around David's renovated backyard. Emma and Sophie splashed in the pool, racing each other, shrieking, inviting new friends from their private school to join. Every giggle was a victory. The first weeks after he got them back were brutal. Therapy, nightmares, questions like, did you leave us, Daddy? Was it our fault? Child psychologist Dr. Sarah Mitchell had explained. She jumped with perfect form. The girl who'd once been terrified of deep water now swam like she owned it. The Victoria Thompson case blew up nationwide. News anchors repeated the same chilling phrase. A mother who faked her own daughter's death to extort child support. Victoria got 22 years. No parole for 15. The judge called her actions a monstrous abuse of parental trust. Officer Harrison got 12 years and lost his pension. His testimony about Victoria's words, David is too emotional to question anything. Within 6 months, his net worth tripled. Emma discovered she loved horseback riding. Sophie joined advanced STEM programs. They bragged in therapy and in class about having a dad who fought for them. And Destiny, the little girl who spoke up in the cemetery, she became family. David paid for her private schooling, set up a college fund. Heroes come in all sizes, he'd say. Sometimes the smallest voice hits the biggest target. On 60 Minutes, the host asked, just to sell. Reports from inside said she cried often about losing her lifestyle. Rarely about the daughters she traumatized.